New 72 Radio, the voice, views, and visions of the collective.
This is the every other Thursday night episode of Diva Talk, streaming live on Facebook, recording on the Zoom platform to be posted on our YouTube channels sometime in the next 2 days. So for tonight's show, have you ever dreamed of switching from a Windows to a Mac operating environment? I have done it and I have thrived with it, which is why I've put together tonight's show to demonstrate to you how you can achieve moving from a Windows to a Mac environment. So stay tuned, and in the course of tonight's show, I will show you how that's done. So welcome everyone who is watching tonight. I will kind of give everybody just a chance to get tuned into us live on Facebook. I'm kind of seeing that stream over here, and I've got my script over to the left of me. And so happy Thursday evening, happy March 1st, happy full moon. We just went through the official full moon about 2 hours ago, and I'm full of new moon energy, or full moon energy, I should say. So with that said, I want to say that Diva Talk broadcasts every other Thursday night live on Facebook. And like I said, we're recording it to be posted on YouTube in a few days. 2 weeks ago, we tried doing this show. I was going to do the big demonstration of how to move from a Windows to a Mac environment, and we had some technical difficulties. So we kind of had to bag or shelve the show. And then I had big plans to pre-record the show to post it on Facebook and YouTube in a couple of days. And I got sick. I got horribly sick. I came down with whatever flu has been going around, and it took me a couple of weeks to recover. I'm probably about 95% there, and I'm hoping that in a few days I will be back to my old self again. But in the meantime, I'm recovered enough to do this show tonight, and so I'm really excited to kind of dive into this topic and let you all know what it's about. The past 2 weeks have been a blur to me. Normally I might tell you about a couple of exciting jobs I've had, but like I said, it's been a blur, so I'm just going to dive right into our topic on making that transition from a Windows to a Mac. And with that said, I am going to share my screen with you. I'm broadcasting from my Mac Mini, which is sitting right in front of me, and I have this huge monitor attached to it. So I am going to share my screen with you, and we are going to minimize this window here. So what you see on this screen here is my Mac Mini. I think it's a 2011, 2012. And the Mac Mini, in the Mac line of products, they've got several different products, but the Mac Mini is probably about, a 5-inch by 5-inch square and maybe 1.5 to 2 inches tall. It's a powerhouse. It's a marvelous machine, and I don't think Apple does enough with the Mac Mini. I just bought a brand new one for a client, probably a month ago, and I was surprised to find out that Apple hadn't refreshed the Mac Mini line in a couple of years. So I'm really pleased with mine. And the other types of computers that Apple has in their Mac line, of course, there is the iMac, which Comes in 21.5-inch screens or 27-inch screens. They're an all-in-one computer, and they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I have an old iMac, 21.5-inch, sitting right over here beyond my fingers, that I took in for a client who replaced it with a brand new one about 2 weeks ago. And I'm working at trying to refurbish it. I don't know if I'll be able to, but it is a thing of beauty, even though it's probably 6 or 7 years old. So the iMac, which is the all-in-one, the Mac Mini, which is just the 5x5 by 2-inch high square that you can attach any monitor you want to it. And then there is, of course, the MacBook Air line of laptops, which I've got one in my closet back here. I should have pulled it out to show it to you, but really super, super thin, great for traveling, really just lightweight Mac laptop. They also have the MacBook line, which they had discontinued for a while, and about a year ago or so brought it back. And then they have their MacBook Pro line, which is awesome. I just installed a new MacBook Pro for a client yesterday, and it was the top of the line MacBook Pro. It was the fastest processor. It was a solid state drive. I think it was a terabyte solid state drive, which is amazing. And it had 16 gigs of memory or RAM in it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful sight to behold. It was a $4,000 laptop that I installed yesterday. And I spent 3 hours with the client. We had a great time setting it up. I taught him all about how to navigate through it, and pretty much all the same things I'm going to show you tonight. So with that said, when you get your new Mac, no matter whether it's a Mac Mini, an iMac, a MacBook, or a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, it's going to take you through the same setup process, very similar to setting up a new iPhone or setting up a new iPad. It's going to take you through the wizard, and it's going to have you log in with your Apple ID, and if you don't have one, it will have you create one. It will have you log in with your iCloud ID, which 99% of the time is going to be the same as your Apple ID. The only time it's going to be different is if maybe in a family situation, a husband and wife might share an Apple ID, but they have their own iCloud ID, so they're not having to share calendars or contacts. With that said, you could still, if you have separate iCloud IDs, still share calendars and contacts, but you can kind of keep things a little bit separated. With sharing the same Apple ID, it means if one of you buys an app, the other one can download it on their device, which is super, super handy. No spending twice the amount of money for the same app. But at the same time, you can kind of keep the separation with your data and what have you. So, so anyway, it will walk you through the wizard. So a couple of things that I wanted to show you with this desktop. The desktop is very similar to a Windows, where at Windows at the bottom, you're going to have your taskbar. And what I'm showing down here at the bottom, and hopefully you all can see this little bar down at the bottom that has all the icons is called the dock. It's your Apple dock, and all of your important apps will reside down here. And when you boot up your Mac for the first time, you're going to have a preset number of icons down here, and you can remove whatever you want, you can add whatever you want. But this is the dock down here at the bottom, as opposed to in Windows, it's the taskbar. So one of the most important icons that you want to be familiar with in the dock is down here on the far left. It's our little two-faced guy, and he is called the Finder. And if I open up the Finder, it's going to be very much like your File Explorer on Windows, where you have your column over here on the left with all of your different directories. And then based on what you click on the left, you have all your corresponding icons on the right-hand side. You can customize the Finder navigation bar as much as you want. You can remove things from the navigation. So if I wanted to say, oh, I don't want to have my downloads anymore, I can say right-click on it and remove it from the sidebar, and now it's gone. So any of your applications will show up in your applications folder, and that is very similar to clicking on your start button in the lower left-hand corner of Windows and going to all programs. It's pretty much the same thing. So very typical things that you might have over here. I've customized mine quite a bit. You're always going to have your applications. You're always going to have your desktop, which I have nothing on my desktop. And you will have your documents over here. I really don't have much in my documents on my Mac because it's kind of a play computer. It's not a work computer. You have movies, you have music, you have pictures, very much similar to your libraries on Windows. Then going down below your favorites, you're going to have devices. So I'm going to show my Macintosh hard drive, which is just the hard drive inside of my Mac Mini. And I show a remote disk here, which is basically just the CD drive. I can have shared devices down here if I am sharing my network with other Apple or even Windows devices. They'll show up here. And then the tags, which I really am not going to go into a whole lot of detail about here, but if you wanted to tag any of your files with certain colors, you can customize those and give them names, and then you could search on those tags. So that is our Finder. Now, one of the big differences between your Windows computers and your Mac computers will be in terms of where your menu bar sits. So to kind of demonstrate that, I'm just going to open Google Chrome, and I'm going to close my mail here, and I'm just going to open just a regular Google page, and I'm just going to move this down a little bit. And so if you're familiar with Windows, you know that when you open a browser or a Word document or an Excel document, any kind of window, you're going to have a menu attached to that window right at the top, and it's going to move with that window. It's fluid with that window. That's not the case in a Mac environment, and it's one of the things that a lot of people have a hard time getting used to, but it's so super simple. Really what happens is the menu is up at the top at the menu bar on your Mac, and that menu bar will change based on what window you actually have active on your screen. So if I were to open, oh, let's see, I'm going to open, how about iTunes? I'm going to open iTunes on this computer, and I'm going to show you how that menu bar changes. So I have iTunes open here, and you notice now that iTunes is the active window, meaning I've clicked on it to make it active. The menu bar at the top now pertains to iTunes. So I can click on any of these menus up here, and it's going to pertain to my iTunes software. And you'll probably notice that the menus that show up here, for the most part, will correspond to the menu that shows up on your Windows computer. You're always going to have a file menu. You're always going to have an edit menu. And then you're going to have various menus that pertain to the software that you've got open. But file and edit are pretty much standard. And then to the left of file, you're always going to have the menu that is named for the software that you've got active. So if I were to say, click over here on Google Chrome, now the menu has changed. Now I've got the Chrome menu, and I've got File and Edit. In the Chrome menu, which is the same with any menu that I would have open or any software product that I would have open, you're always going to have an About at the top. And that corresponds to the Windows Help and About. But in Apple, your About is always under the first menu. So it's going to tell you the details of the software that you have open and most likely the version. Right below that, you're always going to have your preferences. Your preferences basically pertain to the window that you have open and will allow you to make changes to how that software works. So if I were to highlight iTunes again, and now I go to iTunes, now I have my iTunes preferences. And that's where I can change all of the software settings for iTunes. Or I can change all of the software settings for Chrome if that's what I have highlighted. Or I can change all the software settings for Word or Excel or my email or my contacts, what have you. It's all pretty standardized, and it's pretty simple how it works. So I can go back here and actually let me just kind of close this piece here. I'm going to say okay to close that. So the menus that you're going to show underneath the particular program are all going to be pretty much the same, as well as File and Edit. It's going to give you your basic, especially under Edit, your cut, copy, paste commands, your select commands, and a few others that pertain just to Mac. So that's kind of the menu bar over on the left. Over on the right, that pretty much corresponds to the Windows system tray, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your Windows menus. So instead of it being in the lower right, it's in the upper right. And for the most part, when you first start looking at this menu, I've got some personalized apps that open every time I open my Mac. Right now, I've got my Zoom app, I've got Dropbox, and I've got Splashtop, which is remote access software. So those are all particular to my version of my Mac. And they will be different for everybody. Then what is most likely the same for everybody is we've got our Time Machine over here. And Time Machine is like the most fabulous backup software in the world. Apple does their backup software right, and it runs circles around Windows pertaining to their backup software. The Windows backup software is iffy at best. File history sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. And but once you have Time Machine configured and you have an external backup drive connected up to your Mac computer, it just works. It just works. I do not have a backup drive attached to this iMac because I have absolutely nothing on this computer in terms of data, so there's nothing to back up. If I did, I could enter the Time Machine, and yeah, so I don't have one here. But if I did, I can enter the Time Machine, and it would show me this beautiful display of my file structure. Picture this here, my Finder. And it would allow me to just navigate back and forth in time, hence the name Time Machine. And it's a beautiful thing. You can go back in time as far back as Time Machine is backed up. You can go back a year if there's enough space on your backup drive for that. And you can say, I want to see this file called xyz.doc, and I want to see what it looked like on that date and that time, and I want to restore it to my Mac. And it just lets you do it. It's amazing. And the Time Machine backup backs up everything on your computer. So if you were to get a new Mac and you wanted to restore your backup from your old Mac and make your new Mac look exactly like the old one, you could do that. It's just amazing. So Time Machine is the secret sauce on your Mac. Of course, we have our Wi-Fi connection here. I'm connected to my Diva Wi-Fi number 5. We all Macs have the date and time, and you can change your preferences here. And then we have over here what's called Spotlight Search. And Spotlight Search is really, really amazing. It's very similar to the search for the Windows, which is down to the right of your Start button. But Spotlight Search is extremely fast and allows you to search for anything you want to find on your Mac, whether it be a partial name of a document, a name of a file, something on the internet. It's just really, really amazing. So that's your Spotlight Search. And then you have notifications. This little vertical horizontal bar here is your notifications. You can customize that to show just about anything you want in there. It can show most recent emails, text messages, calendar items, downloaded files, news items, weather, the stock market. It's pretty flexible. So you can turn that on or off. So I've got today showing here. I also have, let me get back here, notifications. So it's pretty flexible. So that is the menu bar at the top. What I want to talk to you about next is a function that we have in Windows. Let me close all these here. It's your right mouse click, and there is an equivalent to that on your Mac. So you can right click on your mouse and it's going to show you a menu here on the screen. And you can customize how that works. Most Macs, when they become, when they're shipped, they ship with particular right mouse functions. So I'm going to go into my mouse preferences here, and you can change, the right mouse is called the secondary click. And I have it set up so that I can click on the right side of the mouse. And that mouse that you see that person clicking on in the screen is the exact mouse that I have. It's the white magic mouse here. They truly are a magic mouse. And so if you click on the right side of that, it will pull up a menu for you. You can change those preferences to click on the left side or click on the right side. Most Macs come pre-configured so that instead of just doing a single right click, it's a 2-finger tap where you tap on the right side of the mouse with 2 fingers. I like to change all Macs that I set up to just a single right click on the mouse, just to kind of mimic the Windows environment. And the nice thing about this is that either your scroll direction, your secondary click, or your smart zooms, they all have nice little videos here that you can watch and see how they work. And then they have more gestures over here, swipe between pages, and it shows how your finger is going to swipe on the mouse. Swipe between full screen apps. So if you've got your apps up in a full screen, you can swipe between all of your apps just by using a 2-finger swipe. So that's kind of what I wanted to point out with the right click on the mouse. The other thing you can do is show your scroll bars. And so the scroll bars, and let me pull up my Google Chrome so we can kind of demonstrate this. I'm going to make this screen just a little bit narrower so we can do a good demonstration. And then I'm going to go to, let's go to we're going to go to a web page that's actually going to require a scroll bar. So you can see over here on the right side of the screen, my scroll bar is there. And it shows up no matter where my mouse is. And there's a setting for that in my general, and it's called Show Scroll Bars. And I've got mine set to always so that I never have to look for it. It could be set here to only when scrolling, and so I'm going to scroll here, and it's kind of showing up when I'm scrolling. Or you can have it, you know, automatically based on mouse or trackpad, but I've got mine set to always, so I can always see my scroll bar. So that's kind of one of the preferences that I like to set up when I configure a new Mac.
Due to advancements in technology,
So
35%
we will
of
stop
workplace
that.
skills will evolve.
All right, so we already went over the menu bar, we went over the dock. So let's go back to the Finder a little bit. I kind of want to show you how to kind of customize your favorites in the Finder. The neat thing about the Finder is that it can kind of navigate you to anywhere on your Mac. And if you want to go somewhere where you don't see here in the Finder, you can click up here in the menu, click on the Go, and you've got all sorts of options over here. I'm going to show you the utilities. So utilities is not a menu item here in the Finder, but I can go to my utilities, and it's going to show you all sorts of cool things that you can do with your Mac. And I will probably go over a few of these a little bit later. If we were to say, let's go to computer, which is kind of the root of your computer, and I'm going to say, okay, I now want to go into the details of my hard drive. Well, that's the Macintosh HD or hard drive, and that's pretty standard amongst all Macs when they're shipped. Then I'm going to go to my users area, and I'm going to go to this little home symbol here. That indicates that this is my home directory, and everything in this directory is data that pertains to me. So a little while ago, when I was first showing you the Finder, I got rid of the downloads directory from the favorites bar over here. So now I want to put it back. So I've navigated to where that is, and I'm just going to drag and drop this right here. And now my downloads are always going to show up in my Finder. So that's kind of how you would customize that. You can drag and drop any directory you want over here. So if you have a particular, maybe a client directory that you're always working in and you want to have quick access to it, you just go to that directory and drag it and drop it over here, and it will be available to you. So the next thing I want to show you, let me get to my little script here. So there are a couple of things down here in the dock that I kind of wanted to highlight for you. First of all, we've got Siri, which is the same concept of Siri on your iPhone or your iPad. And I haven't really enabled her here yet. But you can.
I understand, and I haven't really enabled her here yet of you. But I could search them. Okay, I found this on the web, and I haven't really enabled her here yet of you.
So let's test her out. Hey Siri, find me red shoes in Vancouver.
Okay, one option I see is Black Rice Isaac on Kempy Street in Vancouver.
Now
Does that one sound good?
that's funny. My iPhone is responding. So interestingly, I probably should have turned off my iPhone before I did that little demonstration. But so anyway, Siri works the same on your Mac as she does on your iPhone or iPad. So it's really a lot of fun to kind of play with that and test it out. Couple other things I wanted to show you. The launch pad over here. Now the launch pad will come pre-shipped in your dock. And the launch pad is basically a set of applications on your Mac and just a quick way to get to them. If I were to compare this to Windows, I might compare this to the Windows Start screen. Remember on Windows 8 and 8.1 when you clicked on the Start button and you got this big screen of icons? That's similar to what the Launchpad is. And if you click on your Launchpad, you can then go to a lot of the set Apple applications and open them from here. Let's see. I'll go to iBooks and I'll say, let's open up iBooks. And that is the reading app, very similar to the Kindle app, which would come with your Kindle devices. I haven't set up iBooks here, but that's how you would launch it. So that's your launch pad. It's a quick way to get to various applications. I want to go over system preferences just a little bit so you get a good feeling for it. Your system preferences is very similar to the control panel on your Windows environment. They've got it organized really well here with just your basic stuff at the top. You have, let's see, what do I want to show you here? Desktop and screensaver, which is very similar to right-clicking on your Windows desktop and going to your properties or your display or your personalize. And you can change the background of your Mac just by clicking on any of these photos. I really like the space scene. You can change it to solid colors. You can change it to any of the photos that you might have on your Mac. I don't have any, but I could change it to a solid color simply by doing that. I want to go back to my cute little space scene. And then I could customize my screensaver over here. And there's a lot of different options here. So you can set it up to start after so many minutes. You can show it with your clock if you wanted to. You can choose from the photos in your pictures directory. And then by clicking this little back arrow here, we're going to go back to our system preferences. We can set up our preferences for our dock. We can say we want the dock on the bottom, but maybe I want it on the left. Or maybe I want it over here on the right. I want to save my screen real estate on the bottom. So you've got all sorts of things that you can do here with your dock. You can change the size of it. I can make mine really, really tiny. I can make it really, really large. If I wanted to magnify it, I could do that. So lots of things there you can do with your dock. You can change your energy saver settings here, and I could say, I never want my computer to go to sleep, and I never want my display to go to sleep. You can do all of that here. I'm not going to go through all of these settings here, but want to go through a few. You have settings here for your printers and your scanners. So I've got a printer here set up, and you can add printers just by clicking on the plus sign, which is equivalent to the add printer on the Windows. Here's a printer that I don't have in there, so I could just say, let's add the OfficeJet Pro, and it will go through and it will look at the settings, and it will automatically add the software for it. And that's how easy it is to set up a printer on the Mac. There's now and then you might have to go to the manufacturer's website and download the driver, but rarely do you have to do that because the Mac just finds it. What else would you find interesting in here? All of your iCloud settings have a separate preferences window where you can go in and say, once I'm logged into iCloud, what kind of things do I want to share? And this is how you set up the sharing between your devices, which is pretty simple. You set up your iCloud on your iPhone, and you set it up on your iPad, and you decide, okay, I want to share my contacts, which I'll go ahead and turn on here. I want to share my calendars, my reminders, my Safari bookmarks, notes that I'll have, so I can type notes on my iPad and have them automatically share to my Mac, my MacBook, my iMac, my Mac Mini, what have you. The Find My iMac is pretty cool. It's very similar to your phone and your iPad, where if you have that turned on and you lose your MacBook, you can go into iCloud.com, log into your account, go to Find My iMac, and it will tell you exactly on the map where it's located. So those are your iCloud preferences. The App Store is where you get all your applications, and these are the preferences for the App Store. And it tells you your preferences for how you want to keep your computer updated. But if you actually wanted to go into the App Store, that's down here in the dock. We'll just open that up and I'll show it to you. And it's going to kind of pop in here. Pretty soon I'm going to see some featured applications, very similar to App Store icon on your iPhone or your iMac. So, and of course you have, let me move that down a little bit, your featured, your top of the charts, your categories, the apps that you have purchased that might have updates, and then any Mac OS, Mac operating system updates are going to show up here. So I've got a couple of updates. It shows my updates that I've installed in the last 30 days. And then if there were any updates for me to install on my Mac, they would just automatically show up here. So that is the App Store. So one of the other things, I'll close this. I'm going to go back in my system preferences. Everything else here is kind of pretty self-explanatory. In the users and groups, that's where you set up your user accounts and set up your passwords, your preferences for your individual users, all that good sort of stuff. So to add a new user, it's just a simple matter of clicking on the plus. Of course, mine is locked, so I would have to authenticate here first before I can add a new user. And I can click on the plus, and then it's going to give me a screen to add my new user. So it's pretty simple, and those pluses work pretty much throughout the board on your Mac in various areas to add items, and then of course the minuses here if you want to remove items. One of the things that I wanted to show you on your Mac in terms of diagnosing issues on your Mac, I'm going to go to my Finder and then my Applications, and I'm going to go down here to my Utilities, and I'm going to open my Activity Monitor. And the Activity Monitor is the equivalent to your Task Manager in a Windows environment. So when you first go into the Activity Monitor, it shows you all of the applications that are running on this computer. And as we can see here, I've got it sorted by CPU time. And right now my Zoom software is using up a lot of my CPU. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but in my Mac Mini, which is right below here, the fan is running pretty heavily. And that's because it's an older Mac Mini and it kind of struggles a little bit if I've got a lot running on it. So you've got your CPU percentage, your CPU time, threads, the user that's running it. And then down at the bottom, it kind of shows the little graph areas here for my CPU. The system is using 18%, the user is using 35%, and we're 46% idle. And you can click on any of these tabs. I'm going to call them tabs at the top. And it's going to show you, for instance, the memory. It's going to show you what's using the most memory. Well, my kernel, which is the base operating system on the Mac, is using the most memory. And of course, my Zoom app, which is really the only one I'm using right now, is using the second most amount of memory. This energy thing here is really interesting. It kind of tracks the apps that you use during time, and it will show you the energy impact that app has on the Mac, which is really kind of interesting. What is using the most energy on your disk, and how your network is performing and operating. So I use the activity monitor pretty heavily when I'm troubleshooting what's going on with the Mac. So with all of that said, oh, one other major thing that I want to tap into is, you know how on a Windows computer, when you've got, say, your browser open, I'm going to open Google Chrome here, and you want to close your browser, you're going to go over here to the right-hand side and you're going to click on the X to close it. It's the complete opposite on a Mac. On a Mac, all of your controls are over on the left-hand side. So if I wanted to say the green button will put me into full screen on the Mac, so that app is using the full screen of the Mac. I'm going to hit my escape key to kind of go out of full screen. And if I move my mouse over to the top, it's going to pop open my menu bar. So I'm just going to go out of full screen here. The yellow orangish button in the middle is your minimize. And when I click on that, now that screen is minimized over to the dock over on the right-hand side. And I can click on it to make it active again. The red circle is the same as the X on the Windows on the left-hand side. If you click on that, it's going to close your screen. One of the other things I wanted to point out is in the dock, you're going to see various apps that have a little tiny dot below them. So my Google Chrome has the dot below it. My Zoom has the dot. My Activity Monitor has the dot. My iTunes has the dot. That means that that application is open and running in the background. And if you decide you no longer want that application running, you're just going to click on it and go to File, or I'm sorry, iTunes, and quit iTunes. The other thing you can do is you can right-click with your mouse on the dock and say quit. And now that's going to stop that program from running in the background. So with that said, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of moving from a Windows to a Mac environment. Like I said, it's pretty simple. Once you get your mind wrapped around your controls being on the left-hand side of your application screen instead of the right, you get your mind wrapped around that your menu bar is always tied to the top of your screen instead of tied to your app, and the fact that your dock down at the bottom is the same as your taskbar in Windows. If you wanted to reboot or shut down your computer, your little Apple icon in the upper left is where you want to go. Once you click on the Apple, you can say, I want to restart, I want to shut down, maybe I have some apps that are stuck and I need to force them to quit. I can go to the force quit. I can go to my system preferences. If I just want to know about the attributes of my Mac, I'm going to click on About this Mac, and it's going to give me several options. It's going to tell me what version of the operating system I'm on, what kind of Mac I have. So I have a Mac Mini mid 2011, what kind of processor, memory, my startup disk, graphics, and even my serial number here. I can go to my displays and I can see what kind of displays I've attached. I can take a look at the details of my hard drive. I have a 500 gig hard drive with 270 gigs available to me. Will show me how much memory I have. So I have 2 memory chips in this Mac Mini. They're 4 gigabytes each. If my Mac Mini was still under support, it would show all my support options here and show me details about my AppleCare support plan. So that's kind of the Mac in a nutshell. It's an awesome, awesome machine. No matter what kind of footprint you choose on, whether it be the Mac Mini, the iMac, the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and the Mac Pro, which is not commonly used, but used very heavily for a lot of video editing shops. That is a big cylinder, and it's kind of a cool little machine. But with all of that said, one of the main questions that people usually ask me when they transition from a Windows environment to a Mac is, do I have to worry about viruses or malware on my Mac? And for the most part, no. I see and have worked on many Macs that have had some minor malware on it, but nothing critical. It's usually, maybe a toolbar that's been added to your browser. It's usually browser related and usually really simple to clean off. Macs just don't have the virus dangers that your Windows computers do. So on any of the Macs that I've ever owned, and I've owned several, I've never had antivirus software on any of them, and I've never had a virus issue. That may change in the future as Macs become more popular to the hackers, but right now they're just not. So you don't have to really worry about antivirus on your Macs. The other question I've had a lot of my clients ask me is, I own a Mac, can you take care of my Mac via your Diva Care product offering? And what I have to say about that is there really is no need for it. Mac maintenance is minimal. I have a lot of Mac clients that I will, maybe once or twice a year, we'll do major cleanups on the Mac, we'll do tune-ups, but there's no need for regular maintenance. And there are, at this point in time, no Diva Care products that cover maintenance on your Mac. The only Diva Care product that pertains to a Mac is my Diva backup software. So there's always that available. But I would say don't think about wasting your money on monthly maintenance products for your Mac because they're just not necessary. So with that said, I would like to say that I missed you all 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry that that broadcast didn't go well, but we had a Zoom issue, but now we have overcome it. I am almost fully recovered from the flu that I had, and I've missed out on a lot of activities the past couple of weeks, and you all know who you are, who I've missed out on, and your events that I've missed attending. And I am probably by next week will be fully recovered and ready to jump into those networking events and friendship events and family events that I love so much. And so I will be back on Diva Talk 2 weeks from tonight. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but that show will reveal itself to me in the next few weeks. And I want to say thank you so much for watching tonight. I hope you learned something. Feel free to email me, mary@computerdiva.biz, if you have any questions about the Mac environment and transitioning from Windows to Mac. And I think I've talked long enough. I will say thank you so much to New 72 Media for giving me this opportunity to actually provide you with all this information and for giving me a forum to talk about computer issues. Thank you very much, New 72 Media. Thank you, Kelly Lair, who works in the background to make sure all this runs smoothly. And I will see you all 2 weeks from tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening. Good night.